Yeah, I don't want to put too much pressure either because, like, you can't tap out in that position.
I'll jump.
I'd ask you again about the terminology Sanukis versus Kuroshido. Can you call yourself a student of Sanukis or not?
Would I call myself a student of Sanukis? I would not off the top call myself a student of Sanukis for several reasons. One is I am not currently actively studying Kuroshido. I am not currently studying under Soke Haisan as an active student. With that said, that's one aspect. But if we're just talking about the lineage and how it flows, what Soke Haisan taught me has no choice but to be connected to Sanukis. So I would say that with lineage, they're all connected. If he's teaching what he knows and he learned from, I want to say correctly, Supreme Master Dr. Moses Powell, he has learned from him and he's putting it into himself, and now he's teaching. There's a connection there. The same way it would be connected to the V-Jitsus because of Professor V. But I wouldn't say I'm a practitioner of V-Jitsu or V-Jitsu Te or V-Honest Jitsu or Sanukis, because I didn't study directly there. But I've been touched by those through the lineage.
Yeah, since I trained with Soke Littlejohn in Kumitaru Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes, sir.
And I had an interesting come up. Actually, this week I was working out with an Aikido guy. He black belt, and there was another guy watching who's also a black belt in Aikido, but he's recovering from knee surgery, so he was just watching. And so after, they were going through their thing, we had like some free time to work out. So I'm working out with this guy on the side, and I said, "Yeah, I just want to do these flow drills." What I call them flow drills. So
yes, sir.
We're doing these flow drills. Then when I came off the floor, I was talking to the guy who was injured. I said, "You missed this, don't you?" And he said, "Yeah, but what was that you were doing?" "That was Sanukis." Right? And I'm like,
Aikido guy?
Yeah. And
okay.
He said, "Yo, that was Sanukis." I'm like, "Yo, what? How do you know about that or whatever?" But I just thought that was fascinating, though, that he recognized something about the way I was moving as Sanukis.
Well, if you're East Coast, especially East Coast, because people know him, meaning Moses Powell, they know him all over, from what I understand, but specifically on the East Coast. If you were training in this stuff through the 60s and 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on, you have no choice but to know that's that when you see it. Like, you have no choice but to know that's that when you see the flavor of it.
Right.
When you see it,
right.
You have no choice. You go, yo, you're doing that like those guys. So
right.
You must be one of those guys.
And like you said, it's the flavor of it, because you know he could have picked any other form of jiu-jitsu that's out there. But no, he went straight to that.
It's the flavor of how somebody does it. It's like if you're watching a guy fight and he has the headgear on and you can't see him, you can't see who it is exactly. But if you've been watching competitors, you'll go, oh, that's Raymond Daniels. Oh, that's Jesse Ray. Right? They're all kicking and punching, but you see their expression through the art. So that's what that is to me. Basically, you look at some guys and you go, yeah, some kind of way you're related to that over there. Because I know it. I'm familiar with that. That's that over there, what you're doing. I don't care what you're calling it, but that's that. That's connected to that, I should say.
How would you say that your expansion into Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu made you a better martial artist, or just what did you gain from those those experiences, those learnings, those apprenticeships?
One thing I've learned is not to judge. In recent times, especially with videos, you see a lot of videos with people put videos up, and then in the comments you see that wouldn't work, that's not real. Degrading type of comments. What have I learned? One thing I have learned is to shut up, because you don't know what's actually being taught or what's being said. You're just seeing a clip of a video, and nobody said that what was being taught or practiced is supposed to fit in what you're trying to put it in, right? You would have to be there and know what was said and understand what was being practiced, what was trying to be gained through this drill or exercise or whatever, before speaking. Otherwise you're speaking from ignorance. You don't know. So training with them, especially with the Aikido where it's so much slower, it's so much more detailed, training with Soke Haisan and having questions answered through the instruction, what I heard, right, which you don't get in a video, will give you better insight on what is work, what am I practicing right here, right? If I'm making sense, we're often in this social media age just speaking from situations that we want it to be, and we never search for what was it that they were saying, what made them do that.
Yeah, especially in the case of Aikido, people don't understand the context. The context for a lot of that, like the wrist grabs, for example, which you'll get criticized a lot for. The context of that is you're grabbing a samurai's the hilt of his sword, so he can't draw it on you to cut you into a million pieces.
I mean, and I'm sorry, but even bigger than that, if we're not even going back into the time, sometimes you're practicing movement, and that's just to set up from the traditional way of setting it up.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to be a samurai, right? Nobody's running around with the samurai sword right now. So it's like somebody coming, what difference does that make? But now
it's a good basic way to learn the move.
If we weren't learning the move, right? Nobody says, though I come out of this wrist grab and I'm manipulating your arm and pushing your elbow towards your head to put you in a position, doesn't mean that can't happen from a punch. Or that later on in the lesson, maybe it did come to a punch as the student advances and gets to understand what they're doing a little more. But if you're not there, you don't know. So why even, I guess I should say, it taught me some patience for some stuff. Why stop not to pass judgments, because everything is good in its own space and time, and that is a Soke Haisan quote as far as I'm concerned. Everything is good in its space and time. Now let me try to tell you that it's good not in its space and time. Maybe you can critique that, but at least know the space and time in which I'm putting this before you critique it.
Gotcha. How old were you when you started in Taekwondo with Master Sabu?
So I have a trophy. So I don't have anything really documented. I have a trophy that I won, and I was a white belt. And that trophy was 1983. That would have made me 12-ish. I want to say, so I was training with him around that time. I didn't keep a white belt for 20 years. So I'm gonna say within that span of being 12 years old is when I started training Taekwondo with Master Sabu. Prior to that, I went up to a purple belt in judo. I don't have any documentation to say when I started. I could tell you it started with school. I went to a school that our physical education was martial arts.
And private school or public?
Private.
Okay.
Private. And which was called Uhurasasa Shule, created through the organization called the East, that gives the International African Day Parade Festival around July 4th in Brooklyn. It's been going on for about 50 something years now. That organization at one point in time had a school, and my whole all the way up to 8th grade, I was in that universe. So martial arts was part of gym, and that's where I was introduced into judo. My instructor was a gentleman named Walter Bowe, who in later years, in the last couple of years, I was in this house when I found this out, was a bodyguard for Malcolm X, who was one of the bodyguards. You might know some of the story, who was one of the bodyguards. So this is not even martial arts, but it's always interesting. In that time, we know the government used to put people in and infiltrate different organizations.
Right, COINTELPRO, yep.
Yeah. So there was a gentleman put into that organization who was coming up with these ideas about blowing things up. And in that, my judo instructor, with another gentleman who were Malcolm X's main bodyguards at the time, were arrested on the suspicion of this stuff that the plant was trying to bring into the idea, right? Which coincides with his assassination, Malcolm X's assassination. So they weren't around when that assassination.
When he was assassinated. Wow.
So I sat there and heard that story, and I was amazed at two things. One, what a coincidence that you take these guys out the game when this thing is about to happen. At least how I want to see it. And then the other one was that my judo instructor was that guy, because he never talked about that stuff. That we never knew that stuff. I even told my mother, and she said, "Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know he was Malcolm's bodyguard." So it was something he never spoke about or said anything about. But that was my judo instructor, and I went up to purple belt with him. And quick, because I would guess the next question would be, so why did you go from judo to the taekwondo or the karate?
Take it away.
We're in this big armory. It's like a center. You play ball downstairs, these different rooms. You have African dance classes, the judo aikido room over there. That's hence how I knew Brother Carl, because after my judo class would be the aikido, the grown.
So it was like Game of Death. Every room had a different type of
down the way, they had the karate teacher. It's funny you said Game of Death, because the karate teacher in that room before my instructor, I forget his name, but he used to wear the yellow and black little suit like Bruce Lee. So I'm gonna throw this out here because it's just always a fun story for mine, and my instructor never confirms or debunks it. But there were people there who witnessed. There were students there. So, like I said, in this building was my school. So there was students from the school who went to judo. There were students that also were taking karate classes. Some of these guys I can reach out to right now. They told me the story was that my instructor, my taekwondo instructor, Sabu, remember, this is the era of when you walk into people's schools and challenge them. This is coming to the end of that. They say he walked into school. They had some words. They sent everybody out to school. They said the next day, my instructor was there. And he said, "I'm your teacher now." And they never saw this guy ever again. I don't know. I tell my instructor this, he smiles every time I say it. He just smiles. He doesn't say, "Yeah, that happened." He doesn't say, "No, it didn't." He just cracks a smile. I guess that was in his younger years, right? So I always took it as, it's true, but I don't want to say that at my age now. Him, being older, like, damn, I was crazy back then. But that was that story. So anyway, the friends I had that were in that karate school, they would go to karate tournaments. I'm at the judo school. I go to judo tournaments. Judo tournaments, you get medals. You get the little medal around your neck. I'm 12. My karate friends, they coming home with trophies as big as them. They come home with 3rd place, 2nd place, 1st place trophies. The 3rd place trophy is like as big as them. Like a little 12-year-old, it's up there.
Right.
1st place, they coming home, Kabari, carry it and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I want that. So that was basically my switch over to the Taekwondo to get some big trophies. And I got some big trophies.
So you had it in mind to compete from day one?
Yeah. Well, judo is the sport of jiu-jitsu, traditional jiu-jitsu, before people started competing in it. Judo was, historically, judo was created as a sport. That's why they say I play judo, stuff like. That's why that terminology is like that. It was the practice play form of sport form of the art. So we always competed. And then when I went over, and then my instructor was a competitor, meaning my Taekwondo instructor was a competitor. He competed. Like whenever I talk to old timers, they'd be like, yeah, he was doing his thing. And then being a Taekwondo guy in New York, which is heavily Japanese based as far as open competition, you know, whenever I speak to those old guys, when they talk about them, which is always good when people can speak well about your instructor and what he used to do, they're like, yeah, he was good, he did his thing, but he was a competitor. So when I went into that school, it was about training hard and going to competitions.
Do you know his lineage, like who he trained with?
And
what style of kung fu was it? I mean, Taekwondo. I should know that, but I don't.
He was Chengdu Kwan.
Oh, it was Chengdu Kwan? Okay.
Don't get me into saying the whole Grandmaster's his whole name, but he was Grandmaster Kim. It wasn't Tiger Kim. I met him once in my life. It was also, you know David Washington?
Yes.
This was also David Washington's instructor. A lot of people, if they know Dave Washington, they didn't know he was Taekwondo for a long time. David's Taekwondo.
Yeah, I never would have.
He's Taekwondo. He just hung out with the Japanese guys a lot, and maybe he did some Japanese training too, but if you ask him who his instructor is, he's going to tell you the same Master Kim. When I first met David Washington, I was young. He came to me, and he was like, your teacher is my senior. That's how I met him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is me as an underbelly.
So they were dojo brothers together.
Yes, sir. The way he says it, it sounds like he was a senior, right? He was like, he was my senior. So, yeah, David Washington. So he trained with a Korean instructor, Kim, Master Kim. I couldn't tell you his whole name.
Did you ever meet him?
I met him once at a Henry Cho tournament. My instructor introduced me to him. He didn't seem, I was little, I was younger, so he didn't seem too interested in meeting me. Hey, how you doing? Okay, cool. Keep talking to him and keep going.
Did Master Sabu, when he was under Master Kim, did they train in New York or someplace else?
Oh yeah, he's always New York. My instructor is New York. He's
okay.
a New York guy. Yeah, this was here.
Okay,
this
cool.
was here. So yeah, he trained, and it's funny, coming up in the Humble Dojang, we had practitioners of different arts that would come through and train, cross-train. There wasn't any real style bashing going on, right? But if you came in there, you had to spar. I don't have any grandiose stories about, super wars going on, but if you came in there, my instructor was workout and spar. Workout and spar. We had 2-hour classes. 1 hour was exercising, then the next hour was sparring. It would be like that, and I would often tell stories of how, remember I tell you about that come in and challenge the school type thing. Guys would come in and it's funny because it was in an armory, so it wasn't a storefront, so you couldn't, I guess that might have shaved off some of the complete idiots that could come into the school, but the guys that ventured through the armory and got to the school who would come in like, yeah, I want to spar, work out with you guys, And this is me younger, but I used to, as a young teen, I used to work out in the adult classes. And so I was amongst the adults. And I remember they would come in and everybody we would all just get sad. Because what my instructor would do, we worked out hard, I told you. That first hour was exercise. Next hour was sparring. What he would do when a guy came in, or when guys came in and said they want to spar, he would go, sure. You just have to train. You just have to take class. Say, all right, cool. We knew now it wasn't going to be a regular day of exercise. It was going to be extra, right? So now we doing the extra exercise, and I swear, every time we got to sparring, most of those guys, they wouldn't spar.
Because they were exhausted.
Or that whole ego they walked in with was gone. All that energy, I want to fight energy, like, they were just like, damn, now we're going to spar? It changes their whole attitude about it. So that was always something interesting. But a lot of people came through. We had Wing Chun guys. We had the regular Kung Fu guys. All kind of people. On the low, one of my instructor's friends was a student of Moses Powell. And he would have Moses Powell come through on off days, and it wasn't all the whole crew. Moses Powell come and train that guy and maybe 2 other guys. All these guys I know, he wasn't there. This guy would come into the Humble Dojang, and it's funny because I wish back then Maybe it's just because of my age or whatever. I wish back then that they would have made me accessible. Somebody would have pushed me into that circle to go train. That would have been lovely to actually been touched by a doc.
Right, directly, nice. Absolutely.
Especially in that time, in the 80s. You know, that would have been nice.
How old were you when you made black belt in Taekwondo?
I made black belt March 86, which would have made me, I wouldn't have turned yet. I would have been 14.
14, okay.
14, I would turn 15 that summer. 15 that summer.
All right, let's reflect on some of your triumphs and achievements in the World of Sport Karate competition. As a junior, did you and Garth ever spar as juniors?
Oh, man. So, to answer your question, no.
Okay.
When I answer your question first, no. But, Garth, here it comes, Garth. A lot of people have heard this story. My first karate tournament I ever went to, I was too new in Taekwondo to compete. So this is me early starting. My instructor said, I want you to go to the tournament and watch, but you're not going to compete yet. So this might have been 83 too, or maybe a late 82. I go to the tournament, two people left a lasting impression on me. Grandmaster Ron Jeter, the master breaker. Mm-hmm. I never saw nobody run around breaking all these bricks. This big guy just, and then there was a young guy, about my age, had on the KI, if you know about KI uniforms back then, that was the uniform to have. KI, red, white, and blue uniform. And he was doing forms, I guess with the adults, going way back, but that little guy, he had a black belt on. And I left, I remember leaving, and I was like, wow, that Master Breaker guy, that was crazy, Mom, because my mother was with me. I was like, wow, that guy, woo. And you know, Master Breaker would give the whole speech and all that. Woo, that was it. And in my head, I was going, that little guy, that was a black belt, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be like that. And that guy was Garth Benz. It was at his father's tournament, Ben's Galaxy of the Stars. I'll never forget the flyer. It had Billy Blanks on it because his father would bring Billy Blanks and Nasty Anderson in, and amongst other people. But they made the flyer, the picture on the flyer. Nasty and Billy, they were on each side of the flyer with the information in the middle. Benz, you know what I'm talking about, Garth. So they Garth Benz, outside of people in my school, was the first guy I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be a black belt like that guy. Later on in years, and then there was a time when Garth stopped competing for whatever reason. And
probably when he was injured, he suffered an injury. Yeah.
I'm not sure what it was, but he was gone. Garth was gone, and I remember Garth when he came back. I'm gonna tie your interviews in for you. Garth's first tournament back was the same tournament where Keith McKinley talks about fighting
Pedro.
Garth came back with Eddie Banks. I'm tying this all in. He came back with Eddie Banks, who I now understand, if I'm right, Eddie Banks was dating Garth's sister. He got Garth back into training. I don't know if I'm telling the story completely right. They come to the tournament. He's dressed like Eddie. So I guess Eddie Banks was training. Eddie Banks, as I know him, because he was one of the guys that used to come down to Humble Dojo way back in the days, has since changed his name to Professor Sharif Nasheed. And for those of you who know, Professor Nasheed is Jadi's instructor. Years later, Jadi started training with him, and that's who Jadi got his black belt from. It's funny how that circle is. But that same tournament, and I want to say this was my last year, that was 87. Because that was my last junior tournament. I was 15. I was about to turn 16. That was summer 87 when Garth came back to tournaments. And then they opened up the school. It's funny, the first school his father always had the school on Church Avenue where they are now. It used to be in the basement. But Garth then opened a school that was right around from where I lived, right around the corner from where I lived years later, in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And that's when it was that's when it might have been Victory, maybe?
I don't know if that was the name of the school. I don't remember.
I forget the name of the school because the school on Church has to be Ben's Institute of Martial Arts. Right. So it might have been Victory, I forget. But it was around the corner, and then that's where we started becoming like speaking and becoming friends. Like when I saw him in '87, I was like, I know you. I know you, man.
All right. When you were at the height of your competitive years, how would you describe your fighting style back then?
How would I describe my fighting style back then?
Were you primarily offensive, defensive, a kicker, a puncher?
I defensively offensive. if that makes sense. You know, as you said, the reverse punch, the back fist, those were my favorite techniques. Actually, kind of still are. The game has changed a little bit, so it's not executed the same way. But so in attacking, my era was the era coming out of standing still. Like I'm a baby of the first guys coming out of standing still. Yeah, but
because the Ali era affected us.
Right, the Ali affected those guys, and I'm like the last of the babies of that era coming out of standing still, where we still knew we knew how to stand still too, right? Or you were better at standing still and you were changing to moving. Your instructor might have been still standing still, but you're changing to more movement and blitzing, and like those concepts are coming, especially like on the East Coast, are coming out in my coming up, those 80s. Like I remember watching Jerry Fontenez and a Tony Morrison, those guys who were bringing stuff back from maybe training with, well, I know factually, training with, let's say, a Joe Louis, or more so training with Billy Blanks in Boston, and learning blitzing, two-step blitzing, dive bomb blitzing, and coming back, and me watching their students do it and them do it, and then going back to the dojo and trying to do it and simulating it, and my instructor going, oh, what's that you doing? I'm like, oh, I saw these guys doing it. He went, well, go ahead. He was one never to bash, you know, new techniques and well, yeah, go ahead, try it. Let's see how it works. And I remember as a junior in the junior division, those teenage years, I used to meet up with Jerry's brother a lot. May he rest in peace, Louis. And when I kind of got on Metro, I'm jumping a little bit, but that's when I had like Joe Rivera, but more so Gene Frazier, and we would speak more. They were like, yeah, we always wondered about you in the junior division. You were the only guy that was doing blitz and stuff like us. And I was like, I used to watch you guys and go back and practice. Yeah, so they you know, they acknowledged that I was doing something that they were doing, because not everybody in this New York area were doing things like two-step blitzing and dive bomb blitzing and stuff like that. So yeah, being a baby of that era is a mixture of that, sometimes wanting to just sit and watch, which is a bad habit in this day and age. Well, not sit and watch, but be kind of still and evolving into movement. So it was an interesting time. It was a changing time. So it was changing into things that nowadays people would almost even call old, but was new. But
yeah, so you actually were around when they actually made the foam dipped protective gear, when they made it mandatory.
Yes, sir. Oh, most definitely.
Before it was
my first gear was the cotton things with the pad in it.
Yeah.
Right? I remember when the June Rees were coming out. I remember when they made headgear mandatory. Yeah, I remember these things. I was around for those. That 80s was an interesting time. When I first started training, it wasn't mandatory to have gear on. Like, I learned how to spar barefoot and barehanded. Like, if you had gear, it was a luxury. And if you didn't have it on by the time Sabu them called you up, that was your business. You know, like, yeah, I did start in that era of knowing what it is to like punch an elbow and kick an elbow with no pads on it. Ooh, gotta be more precise with your kicks. I was like, that's what I would hear. You shouldn't have punched his elbow. Know where you're punching.
When you got picked up by Team Metro, I saw that as like an important step in your development, and because that was a sponsored team too, which was awesome. So what's your recollection of those days, the Metro days?
Well, let me give you some might have heard the backstory before. So of course we know Metro was sponsored by Hector Santiago. Hector, always appreciative for everything he has done for the sport and for me. There was a point in time, I don't know, do you remember when he only had like the juniors and the senior team? They were the East Coast All-Stars.
Not
He
really.
originally had the East Coast All-Stars, which was, it started out with a junior team and then he had a senior team. Around that time, my instructor's school, we had a fire in the school. So I didn't have anywhere to train. And at the time, a gentleman I was pretty cool with, he was training at White Tiger Dojo, which is Hector Santiago's school.
In Alphabet City?
In Alphabet City. Right 2 doors down from that classic bar scene in The Godfather when they choked the guy out. That's the cross street right there. That's the first thing I remembered the first time I went to Hector's school. I was like, this is the block from The Godfather. But the gentleman who we had common friends with talked to Hector and asked him if I could come down and train. He opened his doors to me. We would come in, I would go down and train. So I was training at Hector Santiago's school quite frequently, way before my Metro joining.
Okay.
And
yeah, I've been to his school too. Those workouts were no joke.
yeah, that closed door with no windows. Nobody knows what goes on there unless you was in there. Had to know the secret door knock to get in. So, true story. So, I'm training at Hector's and I would travel up and down the East Coast with them. And there was a point where I was asked to be on the Philadelphia national karate team. I told them yes. And an exact week later, not even a week, let's say I spoke to Keith on a Saturday, that Tuesday, and I told Keith yes, I gave him my word. Hector Santiago said, I'm thinking about, he didn't say anything, he said, I'm starting, let's say everybody team for that. Yeah, in hindsight, I'm starting Metro All-Stars. Right? It was going to be, I'm starting a team for everybody. I want you to be on the team. I said, sir, I just told this guy, yes. He said, I respect that. I respect somebody who keeps their word. And if you ever want to be on, just let me know. So in that, I never stopped training at Hector Santiago's. When I was on Philadelphia National Karate Team, I was at the dojo at White Tiger Dojo 2-3 times a week training. I was training. That whole Metro era before I was on the team, I'm training. I'm there with those guys, training with Joe, Mighty Joe and Diego and all those guys. And then it got to a point where the PNKT, the Philadelphia National Karate Team, we just never could get a sponsorship, right? So we were still doing, quote unquote, the Chitlin circuit, wherever we could drive to, And I was like, you know what? I want to travel. So, I spoke to Hector and I said, hey, I want to take advantage of the opportunity of being able to go to those tournaments that I haven't been to. And it's funny, this was a Tuesday. Oh man, I wish Jody was here because he's good with the years, but this was a Tuesday before the Battle of Atlanta. And Hector told me, he said, if you make it to the Battle of Atlanta, I'll use it as a tryout for you to be on the team. I said, okay. I go to the Battle of Atlanta. This is when the Battle of Atlanta was in the Dome. For those, my sport karate enthusiasts, you go to Battle of Atlanta now, it's in the tournament, in the hotels and stuff like that. It seems kind of normal. But back then, it was in the, the Atlanta Dome or whatever you call it. It was in the Dome. It was super experience to walk into this dome and know you're going to be on that floor competing. And I wound up taking second place in the light middleweight division in a packed division. This is, the Ibbies, the E.J. Greers. I don't know if Kevin was in it, but
you were fighting lightweight at that tournament?
Light middleweight.
Oh, light middle. Okay.
Light middleweight. Ronald Brady, Ibby, E.J. Greer, Marty Eubanks. I'm not sure if Gene Frazier was in it. He might have been in middle. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he was probably middle.
But it was a packed division. No, it's hard to say because at the time, you also had Joe Rivera.
Oh, okay, right.
No.
Yeah, Joey was fighting middle.
I'm trying to remember if he was in adults at this point. He might have been in adults at this point. I don't know, but that might have separated them. But it was a packed division, nonetheless. Packed division. I wound up taking second place in sudden death to Ronald Brady. So then that night, I saw Hector. He said, "Hey, heard you did good." And from there, I was a New York Metro guy. From that point on, from then until, the demise of the team, or the breakdown of the ending of the team.
That's interesting. Because he already knew how good you were from you working out from all those.
Yeah. That's my point. I was there with him. We would go to locals. Like, I would go to the locals with him. A lot of those guys but that first year, they were still juniors, Joey and them. And a lot of times I would drive the van with the school going up, where Hector drove his car, stuff like that. So I was still in, even when I was on Philadelphia National Karate Team.
Are you the one that put Chris Styles down on the Philadelphia National Karate Team?
Put him down? No, they asked him to be on. Okay. But he was around. We were around each other like that.
It wasn't like you had to advocate for him.
No. I didn't advocate like, hey, put that. I mean, I'm from Brooklyn. That's suckers. That's the kind of sucker move. Hey, put him down. It's like, represent.
So you actually then were never part of the Wise Men, Jody, Jesse, Frank.
No, sir.
And Chris. Yeah, okay.
No, sir. Who was it? Jody,
Jesse, Frank, Jones, and Chris.
Well, that wasn't anything ever. Was it anything ever official?
I mean, they had uniforms, yeah. They had uniforms, but then Jesse also got picked up by Metro.
See, so that's pre them being Metro and on teams.
Okay.
Probably. The Wise Men. I remember them saying it, but they had a uniform?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tan color
See,
uniform.
If you let certain people be sitting here, they're gonna say that's when he was big shot. He wasn't paying attention to us.
yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. He's out there with Metro. He ain't got no time for that.
He ain't paying attention to us, sleeping underneath the tables and stuff. But I was training with them. Like Jody was training, Chris was training. Like, we were training. But yeah. But there's my karate time. Take Jesse out, but my karate time makes me an old guy compared to them. You know what I mean?
Reflecting back on your years as a competitor, I want to know what your mental approach was when you were fighting. And I've seen so many of your matches. I was there the day, that you scored your first victory over Kevin Thompson, and, seen you battling, everybody back then. But when you had the chance to go against someone that you had fought, more than once, so you were kind of familiar with their style, I want to know what your mental approach was to fighting someone like that.
So you want to capitalize on the mistakes you see them make. You want to stay away from their strong points, their strong techniques or suits, or make them uncomfortable as much as possible by taking away what makes them comfortable, and maybe not allowing them to do the same with you. Sometimes it's a mind game, like being that you brought up Kevin Thompson, and I was just talking about this the other day to some guys I trained with, that how he was good for hitting you late and bumping you hard, doing things, calling time out when things got hot. Well, not time out, but stopping, like, I gotta do this, and
to disrupt your rhythm.
Disrupt your rhythm and also frustrate you. And I remember just using him, great, super competitor to the, oh my goodness, super competitor. I mean, even when I would visit him when he was dealing with his ALS, he was talking junk then. like super competitor. That's my man. I went from watching him to competing with him to watching him deal with his situation, being a champ in all three aspects of level of life. It was just amazing watching him. But knowing I was going to meet, let's say, him, it was like, don't let any of those shenanigans take you out of being focused on what you're trying to do, right? And then just realizing the fake patterns and not jumping so hard when he faked, but oh man, I learned so much sparring him through the few years that we did on just being able to relax and see certain things and react and not react too much. Constant fake, constant hard fakes, fast. Oh man, there's so much, and then let that other shenanigans to take you out of your brain cell. He was probably the toughest mentally for me, mentally, as far as just staying in, not getting caught up in that stuff, and then dealing with all the mental stuff, and then just his technical fight style. And he was in New York, New Jersey style. He was coming to fight.
You know, I talked to Pedro about fighting him once, and Pedro said, yo, don't let him hit you with a punch.
No. Oh, man.
Okay, so tell me about some of your most memorable opponents that you had to face and what those battles were like.
Wow.
So you mentioned Kevin Thompson, you mentioned one of the Brady. Which one was in your division? You said Ronald?
Ronald Brady was in my division, yes. So we fought several times, a lot of good wars. Ronald,
yeah, he was a Swiftie.
the thing that it's funny, competing and being able to compete nationally in a lot gives you makes your, like musicians say, your chops. It makes your techniques and your timing and your experience. It gives you more experience. And he had that. I missed that being on the Chitlin circuit. So when I'm first coming out and I'm getting my stuff together, Ronald used to win a lot of the matches. And I'm not saying it to take anything away from him. I'm analyzing me more so. And then as I got more experience in that national thing and playing the game, you know, we evened out a lot more. He could have been getting tired, I don't know, tired of just competing, but we started to even out more. But a great competitor. He definitely made me better, and I hope that maybe he says the same about me. But he definitely made me a better competitor. He was probably, him and Kevin Thompson, were probably the two people during Metro days that I thought about a lot while training. Like, I know I'm gonna fight these guys. I know these two guys, I'm gonna fight these guys. And you know, to some degree, those were the guys that were predominantly winning. There were a lot of guys who could win on any given day, but if you did it percentage-wise with that light middle, when Kevin was in it and Ronald, they were winning it. They were doing it.
How about you and Jesse?
What about me?
Fighting, sparring, and competition.
Oh man, if we did, it was so uneventful. That's my brother.
Okay.
I mean, not to put it that, not to sound like Jesse, outside of people in my dojo, Jesse is probably the one person I know the longest in martial arts, right? We know each other from junior Pee-wee days. I'm a couple of years older than him, so we were never in the same division. So like if he was Pee-wee, I was junior, stuff like that. When I started hitting adults, he was in the adult, he was in his last year juniors and stuff like that. So we were never really in the same divisions, and then even in adults, we were always like a different division apart from each
other. I'm gonna hit you with a question I put to Jesse recently, okay. and then after I hit him with the question, I was like, damn, I should have been recording this. How would you fight yourself?
I'm not saying that all.
Okay. All right, no problem. Exactly. Okay, anything else, any other epic battles you want to mention? Or anything just that we might have left out of this interview?
Oh, man. Like.
Oh, I know about the ratings. Finishing number one. Like I said, I remember a couple of years you finished number 3, and then there was some years you finished number 3. Did you always stay in light middle, or did you go up to middle also?
No, I was in my competition years, I was always in light middle. 99, I finished. 99, I started with the objective to finish number 1 in the ratings, and I did do that in 99. I did in the year number 1 in my division. Mind you, but no, I finished number 1. It was great. My first win off of Kevin Thompson, I think you said you were there. Mm-hmm. That was pretty awesome. That win was pretty awesome. My first grand championship win outside of New York, I beat a giant named Wally Islam. That was pretty big. And the early wins are big because you didn't have them, right? So when you get them, those are the big ones.
Yeah, Wally
they
Islam
feel bigger, I should say. They feel bigger because you never had it. But definitely beating Kevin Thompson, who was beating almost all of us younger guys, right? That was the guy that we were all shooting for. When I say younger guys, I'm talking about Ronald, Pedro, New York guys like Frazier and Exotic and all of us. So if you even remember, you were there, but if you ever see the video of that, everybody that was 20 something was back there with me, and it was like, yo, we gotta get the old guys. It was like young guy get the older guys. So that was a big one because it just meant a lot in starting to pass the torch to these younger guys.
Did you ever fight Jerry?
Fontenette?
Yes.
No, and at this point in life, I want to keep it that way. I would have loved to back in the day at this point, in the level of revere where I hold him. I wouldn't want to do it now.
What about Pedro or Addison Baptista? Anybody from Boston Taekwondo?
I fought Boston Taekwondo dudes all day.
Okay.
All day. Pedro and I, not as much because we just weren't in the same weight divisions.
Right.
But yeah, Pedro's like Alberto Montron,
Okay.
George Pina, Reggie Perry.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. You and Reggie were both light middle.
All those guys, if they were Alberto Montron, I forget my man's name, the dark-skinned brother, that wasn't from Cape Verde. I forget his name right now. I can't. But yeah, and then even the ones that we wouldn't even talk about, because Joe Pina, great instructor, had an army of people that would come out, and you could not sleep on those guys. Joe Pina's students in the 90s, whether you knew their name or not, you saw the patch, and you knew there was a level of skill coming at you. Yeah, nothing but respect for them. A lot of competition against them, a lot of quote-unquote bad blood back then, but now brothers for life.
So your son also trained in martial arts, as well as your wife. Was the training in martial arts for your son, was it mandatory or not?
All right, before we go back, let's go the whole thing. I have 3 daughters.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And 1 son, so there's 4 children. The oldest daughter, we kind of just move out in the statement about what I'm about to say. Everybody else has earned their black belt.
Is your son the youngest of the 4?
My son is the youngest.
Okay.
So everybody has earned their black belt. Was it mandatory? No, but it was something like going to school. Right? So I don't think parents ever tell their children it's mandatory for you to go to school. Even though it's mandatory for you to go to school, well, we never really say it, so it wasn't really anything that was ever said, like, oh no, it's mandatory for you to do this. We did it. They came into the world doing it. Or they came into my universe doing it. Like, hey, we're gonna start, and we're just doing it. It was something that we did. Yeah, so I wouldn't call it mandatory, but it was mandatory.
Awesome. Very good. Any last parting words?
Yes, I am very excited about next year, after my son's football season, where we go to some tournaments consistently together, and watching him compete against guys some that he grew up watching, some that he came up with. My son came up with D Stacks, Kareem Abdullah. He came up with Tyson Ray, a little younger than Bailey, a little younger than Tyree, but those guys, that I'm gonna call it New York because I'm gonna be New York, or this East Coast area. I'm gonna be that always. And he came up with those guys, and to see the success that those guys have gained in this activity, I am very interested to see him compete at the tournament. He had sparred with those guys. I mean, he and Tyson did their first tournament together. They were both like 3-4 years old together. Jesse and I were sitting next to each other going, wow, you believe this? Our children are getting ready to start this tournament thing. They were little. My son lost. He was so young, he didn't even realize that he lost. He was just like, yeah, I'm playing karate, yeah. He was that young. So to see him as an adult come out with that additional football experience that he had in competition, I've seen him mature as a competitor, as a young man, and that
is something that I waited a long time for. The COVID robbed me of it because he was supposed to do it in COVID, and then he found football when I moved upstate out of the city, so I had to take a back seat to his football experience, which was beautiful. He got to go to school. He'll be graduating next year, his last year of football season, and we're gonna come out and have a little fun on this tournament thing. So that'll be very fun to see and watch him go through it and guide him a little bit with it and try to save him some time on mistakes I may have made through the years and so on. It's gonna be cool. You saw him just smile just now when I said it. It's gonna be interesting. He's a cool cat. He's his father and mother's son. He definitely is. So it's gonna be interesting to see that.
Did your wife also make black belt?
Yes, sir. Everybody. When I said everybody, everybody.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
the whole house. The whole house. Yes, sir.
So this is a house you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, the whole house.
Very well, cool. All right, awesome.
Thank you.